time to get caught up on some albums I've missed, and thanks to some of my patrons, I now have 3 to listen to. This is the video where I ask the question, how did I miss this? The first album to check out is from a band who really needs no introduction, Humanz by Gorillaz. Humanz, the band's 5th full album, was released back on April 28th, 2017. It's totally understandable why people would ask, how did you miss this? Because I love Gorillaz, and a new 16-track album should be right up my alley. To give a very quick summary of my preference for Gorillaz albums, I like the self-titled and Plastic Beach fine, but I love Demon Days. If I had to pick one album to really prove how creative and vibrant Gorillaz are, it'd be Demon Days. Up until getting this request, I just never had heard Humanz in entirety, mainly because I didn't expect it to be as good as that 2005 release. So going into Humanz and seeing just how many people were involved and contributed to so many songs, it definitely got me more interested. The first time I heard Hallelujah Money, I wasn't exactly thrilled with it, but I knew the band would have something stronger. And then when I heard the whole album, I kind of understood how this song fit in with everything.
Hallelujah, hallelujah money, hallelujah money.
To be honest, it took me a while to get into Humanz because Gorillaz really strayed away from the alternative field on this album and jumped headfirst into electronica and hip-hop. But at around the halfway point, I was starting to find songs I really liked.
It's the second half of Humanz that started to sell me on this album, starting with Andromeda. There are other songs after that, including Busted in Blue and Let Me Out, that while having that hip-hop presence, also truly define the alternative scene that Gorillaz have dominated every few years. The reason I don't love this album right off the bat is because it is a long beast to get through in 20 tracks, and that's not even including the later tracks and remixes in the deluxe version. What's bad about that is there are tracks here that you really have to slog through in order to find something you like.
Taking into account that there's much more of a hip-hop vibe throughout this album as a whole, as the bass really, and having a running track time for the total album that kind of feels like the extended edition of Lord of the Rings long, not that there's anything wrong with that, it's just really hard for me to love this album. There's so much that I just can't get into. That being said, I totally get why people would love this album. I still think it represents Gorillaz well, and I still do like it quite a bit.
Overall, while it may not be Gorillaz' finest work, Humanz still proves just how creative and truly rhythmic Dave and Albarn and company can be. If you like Gorillaz in any way, enjoy any of the names that are featured with the band in most of these songs, or want to hear more of a hip-hop influence with Gorillaz, then you'll enjoy Humanz just fine.
The second album I was asked to catch up on was Melancholia Hymns by England's Arcane Roots.
I had heard of Arcane Roots before, but I hadn't really listened to any of their music. Melancholia Hymns is the band's second full album, and it charted decently in the UK. As far as a three-piece band goes, they really played with vigor to create a full track of music in every song through atmosphere or volume. Describing the sound of Arcane Roots is in 2 parts. The louder style has shades of an angrier Muse with all their energy like in the song Matter, and the quieter moments reminds me a bit of Coldplay, and that's the good Coldplay songs. Not everything Coldplay does is gold, but when they get it right, they really get it right.
There are unique elements in Arcane Roots music. They can get very electronic and synthetic and very raw with just the instruments and the hard rock style. That proves that they're not just a one-note band. But as far as that type of stereotypical UK British rock band vibe, yeah, you really hear that throughout this album. Wow.
You don't always hear that accent in the singing, but in some of the quieter songs you definitely hear that British crooning, and it works here. As good as the slower tracks are, it's the faster and more energetic songs that stuck with me the most though, like Everything All at Once and Solemn.
Arcane Roots has a talent in creating a vibe in their songs, and they can do it in several different ways. That's impressive. I'm not going to say they're on par with a band like Muse, but this is a band definitely worth checking out. They have all the talents, all the tools, and a lot of potential ahead of them. Overall, Melancholia Hymns is a good 10-track experience with heavy and light styles, all backed by synthesizers and great instrumentals. If you're looking for a new band to jump on board with that has variety and really knows how to create a slow build atmosphere and get a little loud, then Arcane Roots is worth checking out. The final album I've been asked to look at this time is Hell Yeah, the 20th full album from Germany's KMFDM. This episode of How Did I Miss This really features the electronic side of rock in different forms, and from KMFDM, we get a blast of industrial. On top of that, I knew KMFDM had been around for a while, but had no idea they had 20 albums under their belt since the band's inception back in the 80s. From the on and off listening I've done with KMFDM over the years, I have to say that Hell Yeah is exactly what you can expect if you've ever once heard one of their songs before. 13 tracks of heavy, dark electronic, trance, and riff-filled music featuring vocals from both Sasha and Lucia. The title track and following track Freak Flag are the techno dance anthems that the stereotypical 90s movie scene showed with drugged up people dancing under strobe lights. Seriously, there were hundreds of movies in the 90s that had this type of music playing in the background of these raves with people in black leather, high on ecstasy, dancing to stuff like this. For some reason in the 90s they also had this music blasting in offices when hackers were just typing away and doing coding and stuff like that, just breaking into the mainframe. I never got that. If you've ever done any HTML or CSS, you know no one is sitting high on ecstasy in neon lights while coding or hacking. It's tedious work. What sets apart KMFDM from other industrial groups is the use of both male and female vocals. In industrial, something like that has a great change-up in sound. Listening to Murder My Heart, which is more of a sing-along, and then following that up with R.I.P. The System, you would think the tracks came from two different groups if you didn't know who they were by. Admittedly, it's nothing too far away from the vast majority of KMFDM's discography, and in 13 tracks, you're going to have a few to skip, especially with a couple of tracks being under a minute. It's what you would expect from European industrial electronica, but they're good at doing it, and you can hear the creativity involved. If you were into electronic or industrial, then you're gonna like Hell Yeah just fine. It is a continuation of what they've been doing for years, but KMFDM are creative enough and there's just enough variety in this album to give you enough multiple listens and really get your money's worth out of it. Overall, Hell Yeah celebrates a career for musicians who are able to create something as wild and chaotic as they have been for over 20 years. It may not be KMFDM's greatest work, but they excel at high moments in this 2017 album, and Hell Yeah definitely will get you moving. There was an odd electronic theme throughout all these albums that I was requested this month, and that was just coincidence. But I have to say, I'm very happy that I was suggested 3 albums that I'm glad I listened to. It really worked out again. I'm very thankful for that. If there's an album you love that I didn't cover in the past 12 months, this is how you can get me to talk about it and share it with everyone. And knowing the trend I'm going on now, that I'm actually liking the music that people are sending to me, I'm really excited for this next video in 2 months. Next month, I'll open up 3 more slots for album suggestions on my Patreon, which you can pledge to support Rocks. For more information, you can check out the YouTube cards and below in the video description. Please subscribe as it helps it get pushed out on YouTube search ranks. You can check out my concert photography on Instagram, and you can keep up to date with Rocked on Facebook and Twitter.